Welcome to another episode of Recruitment Technology Founders. In this episode, I speak to Chris Bone, who's the co-founder of Newcastle-based Haystack, a careers and insight platform specifically designed for techies. Enjoy the conversation. Welcome and thank you for joining me on an episode of RTFounders, Recruitment Technology Founders. Could you first sort of tell me a little bit about yourself and what led you to the sort of world of recruitment and recruitment technology?
Sure. Well, it's a pleasure to be here, and thanks for having me. So my background prior to Haystack was entirely in recruitment agencies. So I worked for big players like Michael Page and Nigel Wright. Did a lot of international recruitment. So worked in France and Switzerland for around 5 years. Opened offices in those regions. I think probably what led me to Haystack was, particularly with regard to tech recruitment, was the griping really that was coming from both sides of the recruitment marketplace. So from the candidate side, around how they were approached, that they felt a bit commoditized or pushed in certain directions. Um, they felt as if people didn't really understand what they did, and there was nowhere for them really to go to discover the types of companies that they wanted to work for. So maybe smaller, start, cooler companies. Um, the marketplace was flooded with um, the big players with the biggest budgets, which weren't necessarily where they wanted to spend their time. They felt like LinkedIn as a tool was very, very noisy, that you were constantly being approached by recruitment agencies, people who did my old job in the main, proposing opportunities that often just weren't relevant. So a lot of noise, and they ended up switching off from that. From the client side, from the employer side, similar types of complaint really, that always with recruitment agencies it was a little bit expensive, and that but beyond that, it was I recruited for a lot of SMEs,
Okay.
who were doing who in my opinion were doing good stuff. They were good places to work. They looked after their people. They were doing all the right things. They were using modern technology. They were usually working on a mission driven product. And they used to say to me things like, Chris, if we can just get people here for interview, then 9 times out of 10, if we want to hire them, they want to join us because they've seen the environment, they've seen the culture, they've got a good feel for us, and they're keen to join. But we just don't get enough people here for interview in the first place. And that's an issue of discovery.
Yeah.
So in the same way that users, candidates were looking for this type of company, was looking for that type of candidate, but they were kind of passing each other. There was nowhere for them really to meet in the middle in a fun way, in a kind of in an interesting way. And I think the whole process had become a bit of a slog. It's often described to me as a kind of necessary evil, and I think once you hear that phrase, probably time for some disruption. So that's what we've tried to achieve with Haystack.
And when you sort of speak about that, that mismatch in terms of, the people being there and the companies being there, but they're not being really a middle ground where they can meet. When you talk about the sort of current state of recruitment, where obviously there's, everyone writes about the scarcity of talent, and tech talent is usually one of the first things people point towards because, is it just is accessibility part of the issue there, or how do you see the sort of tech talent shortage as a phenomenon currently?
Yeah, I think there's a bit of truth in all of it. So no doubt there is a supply and demand issue. I think particularly if you're looking at the mid senior profiles, there are more jobs for people with 3, 5, 7 years of experience than there are people who've got 3, 5, 7 years of
Right.
experience. So some of it is definitely, as you said, scarcity. It's a supply and demand issue.
Hmm.
And I'll come back to that, because I think that's another issue that probably needs solved. But I do think there's another issue in the sense that techies, developers, data scientists have been turned off looking for alternative work because the process of looking for that work is so painful.
Hmm.
And I know this because I've had these conversations as part of problem surveys or as part of user feedback.
Okay.
Um, and I think from the outside looking in, that was kind of incredibly frustrating for me to look at, because you had people who were in maybe 6 out of 10 jobs, or at 6 out of 10 companies, and who had the skills to kind of to move on and move up into an 8 out of 10 job with a 10 out of 10 company, um, but were stopped from doing that because of the process. So I think techies have almost been turned off looking for a new role by the way they're approached by the actual market. So there's a scarcity issue. There's also just techies turning their back on it and thinking it's just not worth the hassle. I'll just kind of stay where I am. Um, I think to go back to the first point,
Hmm.
this is this is the major problem that tech that we all have to solve. So tech companies, vendors like ourselves, um, probably central governments and local councils as well, is around getting more young people into tech, which kind of it probably starts in primary school and then kind of moves through high school and university.
Right.
Uh, Getting more people involved in technology, especially more girls and women, um, so that the pipeline of people coming through in 10, 15 years' time, you don't have that mismatch of everybody looking for mids and seniors that just aren't available. It's about bringing people through at the bottom end, partnering companies, taking a chance on these people,
Yeah.
and kind of being willing to invest in them, um, being willing to sacrifice, if you like, some of the senior team's time to bring young people on. But getting more people in at entry level
Yeah.
is there's things we can do now, and I think Haystack definitely helps with that. But to truly solve the problem in the long term of the scarcity issue, that's what's required.
No, that makes sense. And for your company, could you delve into sort of the process? So I'm a company looking to, hire more younger talent, tech talent, and somehow stumble upon your website and find myself submitting details. How does it work for a company?
Yeah. So so it's probably best to look at it from both sides. So for a company, it would be um, there's three main problems that Haystack tries to solve for companies. So one, the first two are kind of more medium long term plays, and the first one's a real short term painkiller type play. So the first one is around tech employer branding. Tech employer branding is distinct from overall company employer branding because there are certain things that are really important for techies to know about a company that the rest of the population is either not interested in or is less bothered about.
Right. Yeah.
And they're things like tech stack, learning and development budget, engineering practices. So it's about getting that message. It's about broadcasting what techies want to hear about directly to them.
Right.
Uh, so there's an employer branding play on Haystack that companies can tap into, and that's about just getting the message out there and getting discovered. The second uh, option that we provide is Haystack um, a job board element to it where you can advertise your open positions,
Okay.
um, and those open positions are matched with our users' skills. So if a new user comes onto the app, they're immediately matched with their best opportunities. Um, that's done in a completely unbiased, unfiltered way. So a company the size of Haystack, for example, would have just as much chance of getting high quality matches as would Accenture, Capgemini, that type of business.
Hmm.
Um, so again, that's the issue that's helping with um, new people discovering new companies. And once they discover the new companies, then they're into this tech employer branding, so they can go and explore the company, find out more about what they do, why they do what they do, who else works there, all that kind of good stuff.
Right.
So that is an offering that Haystack has that is it's always on, and it compounds in value over time. As our user base grows, as businesses build out their profile, they'll get more applications for their roles, and they'll get more people joining their talent pool because they've seen the tech employer brand and they like it, um, which is all great. But often companies have short-term hiring needs as well, so that kind of
Yeah.
senior PHP role that's been open for 6 months, this kind of starting to build your tech employer brand is not really what people want to hear on that particular day. Um, so our users have two routes that they can take when they sign up to the app. So they sign
Okay.
up to the app to build a profile of themselves.
Hmm.
Um, very, very quick and easy. So we don't ask people to spend 20 minutes building a profile to see a few jobs. The app has machine learning in it, so the more you use it, the smarter it gets, and the more tailored your kind of homepage feed becomes. But ultimately, there are two routes that a user can go down. One is to remain anonymous, and that is popular with probably about 55% of our user base.
55. It's quite a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, they are the ones who kind of view Haystack as a bit of a safe space. They don't want to be bombarded as they might see it by messages from recruiters, internal recruiters.
Yeah.
There's no agencies on the app, so you don't have to worry about that anyway. Um, but they're not kind of at the position where they are willing to put themselves in the shop window and have and kind of give everyone the green light to reach out to them with interesting opportunities. So just over half of people prefer to browse anonymously. They see Haystack as a safe space.
Yeah.
They're probably more curious, passive job seekers than they are active job seekers.
Okay.
And they will take the time to self-select a small number of companies, usually kind of in between 3 and 6, um, that they are happy to waive their right to anonymity with and to start a conversation with them.
Yeah.
Um, so sometimes these can be the highest value users because they're not in the shop window. Um, if a user is looking more quickly, that they want to be, or they're happy to field
Hmm.
unsolicited inquiries from businesses, they can simply make themselves visible. Um, to make themselves visible, they simply toggle across to make me visible, and then they become. We still use our matching algorithm. We still match them with jobs, but they become visible to employers where they're a good match, and employers have the green light to reach out to them, and that's the short-term fix that Haystack offers as well. So to go back to that example of the PHP developer that's been open for 6 months, we can get you onboarded on Haystack. You can build your tech employer brand. You can advertise your roles. It may, you may get lucky and you may find somebody on day one, but the chances are it's a more medium long term play. Um, if you want to find somebody on day one, then we can give you access to our 45% visible community, and you can start reaching out proactively to them.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. You've touched on quite a few interesting things there. I'd love to sort of delve deeper into the matching algorithm that you guys have got. 'Cause obviously, matching algorithms are, to many people, still quite scary in the sense that much of it is just unknown. Not a lot of companies are really transparent about the way they match their candidates with jobs. I'm not sure what Haystack have done with that, and to sort of delve into that transparency side of it.
Yeah, sure. Um, so if I take you on the user journey, so essentially we ask them 5 questions as part of their onboarding,
Okay.
which are, please give us your tech stack. So what are you an expert in,
Hmm.
primary tech, and what have you touched upon in your career that you're kind of familiar with, but you're maybe not an expert in, and you're maybe not desperate to work with it in your next role. Um, so we ask them those 2 questions about their tech stack. Then we ask them quite basic questions like, where are you located
Hmm.
uh, at the moment? And is your preference for an office based role, a hybrid role where there's some time in the office, some time at home, or a
Hmm.
fully remote role? So that's the second question that we offer them. So tech stack, location, and working practices. Um, the third question is around the type of role that they're looking for. So are they looking for front end, back end, full stack, data scientist, DevOps, whatever it might be?
Yeah.
Select multiple roles that they're interested in.
Hmm.
We ask them for to kind of self-appraise their seniority. So do they see themselves as a junior, mid, senior, or advanced or graduate
Hmm.
if they're just starting out? And we ask them for their salary expectations. So what is the kind of what salary basically would you be looking for?
Right. Yeah.
So those 5 questions are the crux of the matching algorithm. Truthfully,
Okay.
uh, so that gives somebody the most basic experience. It will get them some decent matching,
Hmm.
um, and that's all based around the information that the company provides to us on the other side. Um, the I guess the more clever stuff we do is once we see somebody using the app, we'll start to get a feel for more nuanced preferences.
Hmm.
That might be a preference around sector, for example. So if somebody's only looking at jobs with crypto and financial services companies, we can tailor their feed to be more crypto FS based. We can tailor their push notifications to be more crypto FS based.
Right.
Um, if somebody is yeah, if somebody's particularly interested in companies that are using, I'm trying to think of a good example. Um, let's say they're using, to keep it really simple, test-driven development.
Mm-hmm.
So they're only kind of going at companies who have that, or they're only looking at companies that offer certain benefits. For example, we can start to kind of build more of a uh, kind of detailed, nuanced picture about what they're actually kind of really interested in by following their activity.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
the initial matching is all based around you give us the kind of the kind of non-negotiables of the role. So
Mm-hmm.
things kind of salary, location, tech stack, that type of thing. And then as you spend more time on the app and as you move through it, we start to kind of build a more personalized experience for you.
I think what's interesting is that you know, tech. When you talk about tech people, I think the tendency has already, grown towards, they very much being in charge of their destination. They are very much in charge of, what happens or doesn't happen on any given labor market, right?
Correct.
But what you've actually gone and done is create that sense of animosity, sorry, animosity, anonymity, not animosity,
Yeah.
anonymity for that candidate, and that may help them sort of, well, just alleviate the boundaries that pretty much recruitment has created for themselves, hasn't it? Because when you look at, when you look at just several articles about, all these techies being sourced like crazy on LinkedIn and receiving messages every single day, similar sort of generic messages, of course that's going to turn them away.
Mm.
But were you sort of surprised by, I don't know, the level of success, the success that you've had with this, or?
Um, I think what we I think because so my other co-founders were both software engineers, so they were kind of on the other side of the fence to me. So I was the one chasing them around the market, sending them
Okay.
messages on LinkedIn, and they were trying to avoid me. Um, so we kind of had both views of kind of how it was working currently, and we really what we really set out to do, and this comes back to the point that you were making earlier on about how in demand techies are, was to build a product for techies. So we wanted to build that safe space. It was kind of all about them. We wanted to give them what
Hmm.
they felt was missing, um, which was this ability to kind of to explore the tech landscape as they view it,
Yeah.
kind of TripAdvisor style, to be able to only hear and only see companies, only hear from and only see companies that were relevant to them and well matched, and
Right.
yet and to cut out this white noise that you get on that you get on LinkedIn. Um, and I guess you're never really sure until you kind of until you do build it.
Yeah. Of course.
But we were pretty confident on the techie side that we could build something that they would like, and almost kind of as surely as night follows day. If we had a place where techies felt comfortable hanging out and spending their time, we kind of knew that employers would want to have access to that
Bound
uh,
to hate. Yeah.
community. Um, so that was kind of how we. So yes, I think we probably I think we're probably surprised at how quickly it's happened.
Hmm.
Um, but I think because we'd lived the journey in our previous lives, previous careers, and
Hmm.
because we've done such extensive problem surveys with the tech community, and because we were building something for them,
Yeah.
we kind of knew we were on the right lines because we'd spoken to that many of them that it couldn't be by accident that they were telling us these things. Um, and I think the other thing is, I guess to mention is, so Haystack is a mobile product for developers.
Hmm.
So it's entirely app based. Um, and this was something else that we thought was kind of important. One, it showed that we were a serious tech company because apps are hard to build.
Yeah, they are.
Um,
Yeah.
and they're expensive to build. So we wanted to prove that we weren't just kind of throwing up a website there, that we were kind of a serious tech company. All of our development is done in house.
Hmm.
But the reason we went mobile first was um, so that techies could browse on their own terms. So they didn't have to be sat at their desk. They could be sat on the tube. They could be lying in bed watching TV, whatever it was. They could access. They could access Haystack easily. And similarly, from an employer's perspective, what we wanted to do was be able to put their tech employer brand in our community's hands
Yeah.
24/7.
Okay.
So there's been a few bumps along the road with kind of being a mobile app and dealing with the app store and all that fun
Yeah.
stuff. But overall, I'm pleased that we went down that route.
And what sort of growth have you seen in the past few months?
Yeah, so we've seen a real spike in user numbers,
Okay.
kind of probably since the beginning of the summer. So we've got over 30,000 techies on there at the moment.
Okay.
Um, five main disciplines: so software engineers, DevOps engineers, data scientists and analysts, QA testers, and UX, UI product designers.
Hmm.
So it's quite it's niche in the sense that it's those kind of five main job families, if you like.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, so big spike in users. We've probably gone from attracting 1,000 new users every month at the start of the year to closer to 3,000 a month now,
Right.
which is obviously good levels of growth. I think probably the one area to go back to one of your earlier questions about kind of what have you been surprised by, I think it's the number of people the percentage of people who've actually made themselves visible. Uh,
Okay.
it's funny because we thought or assumed probably, which was probably the problem. I think we assumed that our kind of anonymity angle and putting the power in the techies' hands to decide the companies that they heard from was kind of our number one selling point, and that was the reason people used Haystack.
Hmm.
Um, and what we saw when we kind of looked at user activity was that there was a lot of people who used Haystack quite habitually in kind of the first 2 to 4 weeks, and then stopped using the product
Okay.
entirely.
Yeah.
So we wanted to find out why. So instead of assuming, we actually went and spoke to them this time, and we kind of had a couple of hypotheses in mind that maybe they found a job through the app, which was kind of, yeah, that would be good.
That'd be good.
Um,
The good scenario. Yeah.
well, the good scenario, the bad scenario was that they just decided they didn't like the app after all and deleted it from their phone.
Yeah.
Um, and it turned out that it was neither of those things in the vast majority of cases. People said to us, "Well, we really liked using the app, but ultimately we were on 3 or 4 weeks and we never heard from any companies."
Okay.
Uh,
That's
so
interesting.
yeah, so we were kind of, well, you haven't taken any actions in terms of applying for a job or joining a talent pool, so you're not going to hear from companies because you make the first move, the power's in your hands,
Yeah.
and they kind of say, oh, we thought we were visible, we were waiting for companies to kind of to reach out to us.
They were so
Um,
used to the sort of the LinkedIn effect, right? They just create a profile, and the requests are going to pop in every few
exactly,
hours. Yeah.
exactly. So they're kind of like, well, this doesn't work. Well, no, it's not. It's not going to if you don't do anything yourself. Um, we kind of set some alarm bells ringing, and we kind of we surveyed more users and said, if there was a feature where you could make yourself visible, you'd be hidden from your current employer, obviously, and any other employers that you select. Still no recruitment agencies. You'll still be matched with jobs, so you can be sure that anybody reaching out to a reasonable match is going to be fairly interesting.
Yeah.
um, and you can switch it off anytime you like. If we could do that, would you make yourself visible? Um, and in our survey, about 33% said that they would. And we'd also heard from employers going back, that they wanted to be more proactive. They wanted to kind of reach out to people.
Hmm.
Well, it was one of those where if enough people ask for it, we should probably build it.
Hmm.
As we did. And actually, the results of what has surprised me is the number of people of the new users who've come on since we've launched that feature. About 48% of people are making themselves visible. Um, and if you'd asked me a year ago, I'd have said no way. No, people really want to be anonymous. They kind of value that, the privacy. And it turns out that half of them do, but similarly, half of them, if it's done correctly, and the outreach that they get from employers is um, coming directly from the employer, big thing,
Hmm.
targeted, interesting, relevant. They're very happy to engage
Then it
on.
works.
Yeah, So yeah, that's been that was a bit of a surprise to us and kind of not part of our original plan at all, really. But yeah, sometimes you've got to listen to what people are telling you.
That's an important one. Yeah, you got to listen. You got to survey and see what they
Yeah,
actually think rather than working on assumptions. But that again, that's the sort of mother of all evil, right? It's just
no,
creating
exactly.
something and assuming that it'll work one way, but as soon as
Yeah,
the survey shows something else completely, then that's the way you
yeah,
need to go.
exactly right. I'm sure we're not unique, but I imagine anybody who's sat in product sessions and people are really kind of exercising their brains to think kind of why is this happening, and I wonder what they were doing when that happened, and um, expending kind of a lot of mental effort coming up with some wonderful theories. And
Yeah,
usually it's just, well, why don't we just pick up the phone to kind of 50 users and see what they think?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, let's do that. Yeah, it's pretty basic stuff, but you can sometimes lose sight of it.
Right. No, and I assume, yeah, it was just an important sort of pivot for you guys to do that because, yeah, if you sort of stuck to your guns and stuck to the product you had a year ago, then who knows how it might have ended up. We might not even be talking now.
Yeah, I think certainly certainly with one of the challenges we got from employers. So Haystack's completely free on the user side, so completely free service and kind of always will be. That's one of our red lines.
Hmm.
Um, so it's the employers, it's the companies who pay our bills. And having worked in recruitment myself, I know how proactive both recruitment consultants and internal talent people like to be.
Yeah.
Uh, and what didn't sit that well with some of the people that we were talking to was um, really like the product. This is all well and good, but they would say things like, "So I just create my employer brand, put my jobs up, and then I just sit back and wait for people to come to me." And we were kind of like, "Yeah, that's how it works." And they were kind of like, "Well, that doesn't feel like we're. I kind of want to be busier than that. I want to be more front foot and kind of messaging out to people." And
Yeah.
um, so that was that, and also it wasn't helping with their short term needs. So
Hmm.
you talk about kind of going into a sales process now. If you're sitting kind of pushing a long term kind of vitamin type solution, and somebody's sitting there thinking, "This is all well and good. I can see how that's going to help me 12 months down the line." But I've got the CTO breathing down my neck about these three roles that have been open for
Yeah.
how we can't get this. You're selling me something that I don't kind of. It's not solving my problem in the here and now.
Yeah.
Um, so that was another reason why we kind of we knew at some point we would have to allow um, TAs, internal talent people, to be more proactive with the community. I think, but I think it was, how do we do that? It's still, the power still needs to be in the techies' hands. They need to opt in for that,
Hmm.
um, rather than be kind of automatically opted in. Um, so yeah, I think it was a pivot that we were always going to take at some point. We probably did it. I think probably based on the user feedback as well as the employer feedback, we thought we're going to have to move now. Otherwise, it might be too late.
Yeah, no, right. That makes a lot of sense. But we've sort of covered the haystack part of things.
Yeah,
I'm interested to dive a little bit deeper into your personal background.
yeah.
A quick LinkedIn search tells me that you graduated from Boston University on a full athletic soccer or football scholarship.
Yeah, yeah.
First of all, what position did you play? Were you any good? And I think that the most important question is what did that sort of period in your life teach you that you still sort of perhaps use
Yeah,
today?
yeah, definitely. So was I any good? It depends who you ask. I get I'm one of those people who gets better in the pub as the night kind of wears on. um, but I was okay. I think I was never going to be good enough to be a professional in England.
Okay,
That was kind of that was probably clear from kind of 15, 16. But I absolutely love playing,
right.
um, and I wanted to take it as far as I can. Um, and there was a history of kids from Newcastle going to do soccer scholarships in the US.
Hmm.
Um, so I dug a little bit deeper into that, and it felt like a really good way of being able to continue with football soccer at a high level. It was a good level college soccer in the US then, and I think it's even stronger now.
Yeah.
but also to get a degree at the same time, knowing.
Exactly. I mean, full scholarship. That's no joke.
No, so it was, yeah. I mean, I think Boston University, which where I went, was, I think it's something like $50,000 a year to attend there now.
Yeah.
It's crazy money. So yeah, it was an amazing opportunity, both kind of athletically and academically. So yeah, it was a brilliant opportunity and kind of too good to turn down. It was very daunting turning up as a kind of 18-year-old in a foreign city.
And especially one like Boston, maybe that
Yeah,
doesn't help.
yeah, it felt a long way from home. I probably looked ridiculous as well. Um, it was great. Overall, it was an amazing experience. So it was. Um, it kind of, it sounds a little cliche, because I guess universities like this for a lot of people, irrespective of whether you go to your local university or travel overseas. But you really do move from kind of being a child into adulthood.
Hmm.
Um, so that was definitely the case. It was good for me to mix with other nationalities and other cultures. I think.
Hmm.
Um, I think probably up to that point, without realizing it, I'd probably led quite a sheltered existence in the northeast of England. Um, so it was great from that perspective. Um, and yeah, I think kind of learned a lot about kind of standing on my own 2 feet and kind of being so far from home. I couldn't kind of rely on being able to phone up my mum and dad and that kind of stuff. I think from not that early in age, because I was 18 and kind of able to vote and all that good stuff. But yeah, you did have to fend for yourself for it. But they were great people at the university. I was kind of blessed with the coach who was there of the soccer team, who kind of really looked after not just me but the other kids who come from overseas.
Hmm.
Um, so I owe him a lot. One, for taking the chance on me and giving me the full scholarship, but also for looking after me in the 4 years that I was there.
But I'm interested because you studied journalism.
Mm.
So how did that sort of translate to recruitment, or how did that sort of evolve into recruitment? Because you touched on it earlier, your experience of working in recruitment, but how did that sort of come about?
Yeah, so the journalism, first of all. So I was a sports nut as a kid, and still am. So I had this idea that if I wasn't going to be good enough to play, then I wanted to go and report on it, because I would get free tickets for all the big events. So this was kind of my teenage mentality. Uh, so I signed up for a journalism course, and kind of, well, I enjoy writing. And it got to the end of a couple of years, and I went to see the careers officer at the university, and he said, "You're doing a journalism course, so I presume you want to be a journalist." I was like, "Yeah, ideally a sports journalist." He said, "Okay." He said, "Can you show me your clippings from the first 2 years at university? So kind of, what articles have you written,
Hmm.
opinion pieces, or which games have you attended that you've written on?" And I said, "Oh, I haven't done any of that." He said, "Well, you don't want to be a journalist." He's like, "You just like watching sport on television."
That was a rude awakening.
Exactly. It was kind of, actually, you're probably right. If I was that keen on it, I probably would have done something about it in the 2 years that I'd been here. So that was kind of that was the end of that. And I think in terms of recruitment, like most people, this is kind of, I think most people you ask who end up in recruitment would say they ended up in recruitment by accident.
Hmm.
Um, so my story was, so by now I was doing my masters down at Oxford University, and I was coming to the end of my masters, and I had absolutely no money. So I knew I was going to have to move to back into home for a while. And my idea was to try to move back to Newcastle, work for a while, live with my mum and dad, save some money, and
Hmm.
then kind of almost go and get a proper job in London. That was the theory. So again, went along to the careers office this time at Oxford University, and as I was waiting for my appointment, I was thumbing through a magazine, and I saw an advert which said, um, recruitment consultant, Newcastle upon Tyne, and it had a pound sign with the word excellent written next to it. And I thought, that's got my name, that's got my name written all over it. Um, so so applied for the job, didn't really know what was involved, to be honest with you. Probably thought it was an HR job.
Okay.
Um, uh, got the job and really enjoyed it. Almost immediately, loved the company I worked for at that time. Um, I had a really good peer group who started around the same time as I did, who became friends and still are now.
Hmm.
Um, and kind of met my then girlfriend, now wife, during that period, and kind of the whole moving to London just kind of went away.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, I fell into it basically by accident, but I really liked it. And one of the things people often say to me with Haystack is kind of, "Oh, you've really got it in for recruitment agencies." And I actually get quite defensive about recruitment agencies, I guess because I spent so long
Yeah.
in them, um, and also because I met some of the brightest, sharpest minds that I've met in my life in working in those companies. So I know there's some really good people in there.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, my first experience was brilliant, excellent training, really good commercial school, excellent people to learn from. So yeah, it was by accident, but once I got into it, I really liked it.
Oh, good. Yeah, I mean, again, you've experienced both sides, so yeah, of course you're
Mm.
going to be defensive because why would you sort of screw the people that you've worked with?
Yeah, and I spent 16, 17 years working in recruitment consultancy. So um, it, it, it kind of it gave me a good standard of living, but also, like I say, I think there's obviously bad ones out there. Of course, there is. Do you know what I mean? There's kind of,
Of course,
and
yeah.
it's the same in any walk of life and in any profession. But
Hmm.
the companies I worked for, and the people I met overall, kind of the vast majority were people who wanted to do the right thing by their candidates, wanted to do a good job for their clients, and were generally bright, sharp people.
No, good. Yeah. The last question, and we can revert back to Haystack if you want. So I think part of what interesting to sort of end on is your roadmap for the next 12 months because you're still a new company. So
Yeah,
every change is. I think you were founded in 2020. So yeah, still
yeah,
new. So first, just tell me a little bit about the roadmap for the next 12 months.
yeah. So it's quite an extensive one. So you're right. We were formed in 2020, just before just before the global pandemic. So amazing timing. Um, Actually, as an aside, that actually wasn't the worst timing for us because we were going to be in build phase anyway.
Actually, pretty
Um,
good timing. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So we were probably one of the 1% of companies that actually benefited from the pandemic. Um, what's on the roadmap? A lot. So we are keen to build a web app. So even though I've just talked a lot about uh, that, I'm pleased we went mobile first, and I am, and I think it did prove a lot, and I don't regret it. I think in terms of there are downsides to being mobile in
Yeah.
terms of building your profile.
Hmm.
There can still be a little bit of reluctance to apply for a job on a phone. Um, so I think having a web app as well will make Haystack more accessible. You don't have to install an app.
Hmm.
So you know, I know what my phone's like.
Yeah. Same here. Yeah.
So you're always a bit reluctant. Oh, another one. Kind of. Why can't they just build a website? And we've had that feedback from users as well. Kind of. Why have you built an app when a website would have been perfectly fine? So we're going to build. So we're building a web app at the moment,
Okay.
and that's scheduled for release at the end of November. Um, and obviously there'll be a lot of learnings that we have when we first put that up. But
Hmm.
that's the next major thing on the agenda. And I think the other things are to do with us maturing as a company. So one of the things that our bigger companies ask for is ATS integrations,
Hmm.
which we, again, because of priorities and time and resources, um, we haven't made a priority. So that's kind of fine for now, but particularly big PLCs, they kind of, and I get it, I understand it. They've spent a lot of money and a lot of time
Yeah.
uh, putting an ATS in place,
Hmm.
and they don't want this kind of little standalone system
Hmm.
where they're holding data and where they're kind of so ATS integrations, which um, we'll probably start with the best known ones, the kind of breezes and greenhouses of this world
Hmm.
before moving down. So So those are two more things on the so ATS integrations and web app are probably the next two big things that we'll tackle. Um, and then yeah, there's a lot of other things. We have some good ideas, some of which I should probably keep private because I'll get told off by Rob.
Makes
Um,
sense. Yeah.
but yeah, we got some quite big ideas for the product, and also I think we're keen to expand overseas. So at the moment, all of our users, all of our customers are based in the UK.
Hmm.
Um, but there's clearly a big market in Europe. There's clearly all the same problems exist in the EU and the US, just on a much bigger scale.
Yeah, exactly. Problems are similar everywhere. I think
Yeah,
especially with techies, they tend to be they have a sort of global mindset as well, so they're not limited to just a nation that they work or reside in.
yeah, definitely. I think you're right. I think techies have always been one step ahead in terms of international work and remote work.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Yeah.
and I think the pandemic's only kind of sped that up. I think a lot of people have realised that, hang on a second, I can actually do this job perfectly well from home 4 or 5 days a week. So why am I limiting myself to companies within a 20-mile radius of where I live?
No, exactly.
What's to stop me looking at Paris or Munich or San Francisco? There's kind of a whole world of opportunities. I've got the skills here,
Hmm.
so the kind of the you're not geographically limited in the same way that you were, kind of even 5 years ago. And that's also great for companies as well because one of the in all of my other roles as kind of director or managing director, you were always limited to your talent pool was always limited geographically.
Yeah.
It's always difficult, even in recruitment, to get enough good people
Yeah.
into the company. And I would have loved to be able to recruit anywhere because it would have just opened up this kind of world of possibilities where you could bring in the best minds from all over the UK, certainly, and kind of and overseas as well. So um, I think remote working presents a great opportunity all around.
No, I agree. Yeah. So real final question now. If we were to speak again in say long way down the line, 20 years from now, beyond Newcastle United probably winning a Premier League title in that time, what do you sort of see for a best case scenario for yourself and for the company?
Yeah, I think I would like for us to kind of achieve what we set out to achieve. Um, so the poster behind me, I don't know if you can see it fully, but it says "Chase the vision, not the money." And the vision for the company is to solve this problem. So is to um, enable tech professionals to find the best work for them, to be fulfilled in their work, and to feel like there's no that whole necessary evil and bit painful has kind of gone away.
Hmm.
And the same for companies, that they have the ability to attract the best people into their organization that can really make a difference.
Yeah.
I think internally, from a Haystack perspective, clearly the focus right now is on growing. Um, I, I'm a bit romantic in this sense, so I kind of hope that the kind of 15, 20 people who are with us now will still be with us in 20 years.
Hmm.
Um, Deep down, I probably know that won't be the case because it's not the way the world works. But I would like to think that a lot of the people who started on the journey with us can kind of see it right through. Um, yeah, we'd like to be overseas. Definitely, I think Haystack would go very well in America.
Hmm.
I'm convinced it would. And similarly, although there's a complication of language, I'm sure it would across the EU as well. Um, so yeah, I think to kind of be um, an international leader, I'd still like to be involved in some way. I kind of I, it would be a nice problem to have, but I don't really see myself just kind of disappearing often. Yeah, and not doing a lot. So I think I'd always like to be involved in some way. Again, it's a massive cliche, but literally, and I can speak. I've got 4 kids, so I kind of know what it feels like to kind of talk about something as being like a baby. And this actually does. It does. When people say that, it actually does. It does make sense to me. Yeah, I think to achieve our mission, to give to give great career development opportunities people who are here, and to take them on an amazing journey, and for them to look back and say, I was there when there was only 15, 20, 50 people. And to go international, I think those are probably what we would set out to do.
Well, awesome.
Yeah,
I hope we speak again in 20 years and
yeah,
we'll revisit this talk and look
yeah,
back.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Cheers, Chris. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. Absolute pleasure. Thanks for that.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Recruitment Tech Founder Stories. For more news and insights into the world of recruitment technology, please visit our website at recruitmenttech.com.